Tarnak felt a surge of pride well up within him. After countless assessments and grueling exams, he had been selected as part of the delegation that would meet with the first extraterrestrial species his kind had ever encountered. It had been ages since that initial meeting, and negotiations had dragged on for what felt like an eternity. Tarnak's deepest desire was to finally conclude the discussions his ancestors had started so long ago. Stepping into the conference chamber aboard the Terran ship, he activated a panel near the entrance, signaling his presence. "Back in my day, we just knocked," grumbled one of the old delegates, his voice laced with impatience. The early dialogues had taken place on their home planet. This was the first time the talks were happening aboard a Terran vessel, one that had been painstakingly modified for their species' needs. "Can you believe it took these lumbering creatures 8 full rotations just to adapt a ship?" The old one muttered under his breath. "I could have built an entire ship by myself during that time." "With all due respect, old one, their technology might be more intricate than we understand," Tarnak replied, trying to maintain diplomacy. The fact was, the few pieces of tech the Terrans had shared had been incredibly complex, far beyond what Tarnak's people were used to, though not entirely revolutionary by their standards. "Greetings, honored delegates," a Terran said as they entered the room. The delegation stiffened. They had only ever seen holographic images of Terrans before, and seeing one in person was more overwhelming than expected. "Not exactly a display of dominance," the old one whispered, peering up at the towering figure, who loomed over them at twice their height. They had assumed, based on data, that the Terrans would be of similar stature. The intelligence team would certainly be reprimanded for such an oversight. "I hope today we can finally wrap up these negotiations. It's been a long road, and both of our worlds are eager to begin trade," the Terran said, his tone calm but direct. "Yes," the old one barked. "These discussions would have concluded rotations ago if you hadn't dragged your feet. I'm sorry for the delays. Retrofitting parts of the ship to accommodate your needs took longer than expected," the Terran replied with a polite bow. "I was barely out of the nursery when your people first landed, and now I can finally see my kind stepping into the greater galaxy," the old one declared. "Indeed. We've prepared everything you requested," the Terran said, tapping a data slate. The delegates' devices buzzed, signaling the receipt of the final agreement. "At last," the old one growled, a note of satisfaction in his voice. "It's an honor to be part of this," Tarnak said, scanning the document. His eyes caught on something unusual. "Excuse me, Terran, but these figures here, what do they represent?" The Terran tilted his head slightly. "Ah, those are dates." "I see. Thank you." "Dates?" the old one delegate interrupted, squinting at the numbers. "These don't seem to follow our cycle. Is your measurement of time different?" "Yes, it likely is, given our evolution and profession through the sciences is fundamentally different," the Terran replied. The old one grunted in understanding and placed his digital seal of approval on the agreement, followed by the other delegates. "Fantastic. Now, let's celebrate." The Terran turned toward the wall and pressed a button. Moments later, a series of automated devices appeared, carrying dishes filled with Terran delicacies. As the delegation began to sample the unfamiliar foods, Tarnak found himself drawn to the viewport, where the site of his home planet, a vibrant blue pearl, hung in the vastness of space. Few of his kind had ever seen their world from this perspective, but soon, he knew, such a view would become routine. "A stunning view, isn't it?" The Terran diplomat joined him, standing at his side. "Yes, it's breathtaking. I remember the first time we arrived here. It was something magical, seeing all the lights of your cities come alive at night." "You mean your ancestors, surely?" The Terran chuckled. No. I was part of the original crew that first surveyed your planet." Tarnak blinked in disbelief. "But that was hundreds of rotations ago." His outburst caught the attention of the room, and all eyes turned toward him. Diplomats weren't supposed to lose their composure, but Tarnak couldn't help himself. "Apologies for the interruption," he said quickly. "No problem," the Terran replied smoothly. "Our translation system is still working on what you mean by rotations." "One moment." He glanced at his data slate. "Ah, there it is. A rotation is what we call a week. A week? Tarnak echoed. Yes. We arrived here about 100 weeks ago. Tarnak felt his pulse quicken as he did the math. That's over 300 rotations. The rest of the delegation froze, staring at the Terran in astonishment. This creature was older than many of their nation-states. So this youngster is older than I am? The old one delegate asked, visibly rattled. In their culture, age was synonymous with wisdom, and wisdom gave the right to lead. Well, I suppose that's one way to put it, the Terran said with a chuckle. How old are you, Tarnak? I'm just over one of your Terran years, Tarnak answered, still processing the revelation. And the old one? The Terran asked with curiosity. I'm about 5 of your years, the old delegate said, pride in his voice. That explains a lot. No wonder the diplomats kept changing on your end. We thought it was something we were doing wrong, the Terran said with a laugh. It also makes sense now why your broadcasts seemed so fast-paced. Broadcasts? Tarnak inquired, puzzled. Yes, when we first detected transmissions from your planet, everything seemed to be happening at an accelerated rate. We thought it was interference, or some kind of malfunction. Now I see, it's simply that your species lives at a faster pace. Are you considered old for your kind? Tarnak asked, hoping for some clarity. The Terran grinned. Me? Not even close. My grandparents are still alive. My grandmother's almost entirely cybernetic at this point, but she's still going strong at 90. 90? Tarnak felt a wave of awe crash over him. That's nearly 5,000 rotations. So many generations. I'm not even sure you could say we were entirely the same species that long ago. The Terran chuckled awkwardly. I suppose to you, we must seem like mythical creatures, almost like the Greek gods from our stories. Gods? Tarnak asked, unfamiliar with the term. Yeah, in our old tales, these gods were extraordinarily long-lived beings, just like us, except they had extra supernatural powers and could live for untold thousands of years. The delegates' devices pinged with a new translation. Greek gods, beings that could live for an indefinite amount of time. Not to worry, though, the Terran added. These beings are just legends, nothing to fear. With all due respect, Tarnak said, his voice steady, your lifespan already sounds like something from our legends. How certain are you that such beings don't exist? The Terran smiled. Well, I guess we'll just have to be on the lookout for space gods now. Hopefully, they aren't the hostile type.